All right, so today I want to talk about an article out of the Financial Post, and it's titled Oil Demand Will Rebound by 2022 and Will Grow for Another 2 Decades, OPEC. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is actually very funny in that if you talk to the average leftist, the average, we need to double down on green energy, those kind of people. One of the central tenets of their argument is the demand for oil is going down, and oil and gas is a dying industry. And it's so funny. It's so funny to watch them just be proven completely wrong, like definitively wrong, but yet still just double down and double down and double down. And the real question when it comes to this is just exactly why are they against oil and gas? It's not because it's a dying industry, because it clearly isn't a dying industry, or at the very least within the next generation or two. Maybe 100 years down the road, you want to make that argument, maybe. But like I say, for at least the next 2 decades, oil and gas is going to be around every bit as much as it is today. So that's not an argument. The other argument being is, oh, oil and gas is a finite resource, therefore we should go towards renewables. That's not an argument either. I think for there's two things that come off the top of my head. Number one being the national debt is also unsustainable. Therefore, we should not be running deficits, right? Well, no, they would never agree with that. So that's a pretty blatantly contradictory position. The other one being too is that the materials for making batteries and solar panels are also finite. Therefore, again, that's another very contradictory position. And not to mention, too, a lot of the work that goes into making these batteries and solar panels comes from very shady or questionable tactics, to say the very least. And by that, I mean you look at some of the human rights issues that go on in these countries that are mining the lithium and all this stuff that goes into making batteries and solar panels. So again, it can't be either of those reasons. What is the real reason that they're against oil and gas? I believe, well, the average person, I believe it's just simply them repeating the people that they trust. They'll repeat whatever the people they trust say, but the actual people that aren't just the dumbed down, gullible, will believe whatever CBC or the NDP or the Liberals tell them. What are the people that are telling these people? Why is it that they want to go away from oil and gas? I think it's simply to push these more leftist policies, and here's the reason why I say that. The Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is kind of like the gold standard of the environmentalists and what these leftists want. And here's the reason why I think, like I say, the main goal when it comes to going away from oil and gas is to push for socialism. And here's why I think that is. Because, like I say, the Green New Deal didn't actually talk nearly as much as what a lot of people would think about renewable energy, going away from oil and gas. It didn't actually talk that much about it. It talked a lot about reparations and socialism and all these, further left kind of fringe policy positions. So again, and not to, like I say, not to mention too, the one of the people that made it up with AOC, I think, was even quoted in saying, like I say, the main goal when it comes to the Green New Deal is to push for socialism. Not, I mean, obviously they want the whole renewable energy thing with socialism, but the main goal, they said, was socialism. So again, I just wanted to bring that up for starters because, again, this is something you hear constantly all the time about of these people is, oh, the oil and gas is a dying industry. Jason Kenney and the UCP are so stupid for propping it up and for still believing in it. Like, no, you guys are the idiots. So again, does that mean I'm fully on board Jason Kenney? Absolutely not. No, again, and this is another thing that I just can't stand about these people too, is that they just constantly strawman you. They constantly strawman, right? And not to mention too, they'll deliberately misinterpret what you're saying and force you to try and defend the position that you're not even trying to argue for, right? And maybe it's because it's either because they're just so ignorant it's not even funny, or they're not ignorant but they're just a-holes, right? So again, that's another thing that really can't stand me. But again, The main point of the video here being is that it is a myth that oil and gas is a dying industry. And here's the thing, it's a myth that we should be going away from it first, and that the whole idea behind climate change is that human beings are a significant cause of it, and there's no evidence of that. Right? There's no evidence of that. We have been having warnings about climate change going back to the 1980s, and none of it's came true, right? Like none. I mean, and this again, I don't have a whole 20-30 minutes to explain the reasoning behind why climate change is complete bunk, but in a nutshell, I mean, here's another, like, the main reason why these people are wrong is that one of the main arguments they'll do is that you'll claim climate change isn't a thing. They'll turn around and give you a chart that shows CO2 going up over the last 100 years, or the temperature going up over the last 100 years, and they'll use that as proof. Well, that must mean climate change caused by humans, and that's not the case. And again, that's not what the quote unquote climate deniers, which is a complete stupid buzzword, that's not what they're saying. What they're simply saying is that human beings don't have a big impact on it. If you understand the Earth's history, you would understand that there has been periods to where the Earth has warmed very large amounts, and there's also been times where the Earth has cooled very large amounts. And the other thing that you would know as well is that CO2 has very little effect on that. CO2 has very little effect on that. And again, here's another way that completely debunks that idea too, is that if you look at the coldest years, if you look at the years with the most fires, the most hurricanes, even the warmest years, none of them are recent. None of them are recent. In fact, the vast majority of them are a long time ago. I mean, the year with the most fires in the States, I believe, was 1910. The warmest years were in the 30s. Not to mention, too, I believe the warmest temperatures ever recorded were like 100 years ago as well. Hurricanes were actually going down up until this year. This year has been a little bit higher, but the past few years before that, hurricanes and tornadoes were actually significantly down. So again, they don't have any proof. And here's the reason too, is that they just blindly believe what they're told. Like, these are the same people that just blindly believed, oh, mask mandates, with they didn't provide any evidence to back up the mask mandates, but they still believed it. Lockdowns, no evidence the lockdowns work, but they just went along with it. Again, so this is just the things that I wanted to bring up. But again, I wanted to make a video about this because, like, you talk to the average leftist and they genuinely believe that oil is a dying industry. It isn't. And here's another reason why they're wrong as well. I just thought of this. Whenever you debunk their initial arguments, they'll always come back to the idea of, oh, well, the oil isn't trading nearly as high as what it did 10 years ago, which they're right about, but they're also wrong about it, in that if oil and gas was a dying industry, you wouldn't have to resort to that argument, right? You wouldn't have to resort to that argument. So again, that's just another reason that would, show that they're wrong. So, and again, here's another way that you would know it was a dying argument. If you knew it was a dying industry, I mean, you wouldn't have to legislate it out of existence. Because what would happen? What would happen is that it would become less and less profitable to do it, and then the businesses would just go out of business. So again, the argument they would come up with in return to that is, oh, Kenny has bailed out all the oil and gas companies, and he'd give them billions of dollars. Well, again, do you know that they would have gone out of business otherwise? And here's the other thing. How much money have they lost due to the regulations that have been implemented by the government of Canada? That's probably a lot of money. Like, here's the thing, like, you'd have to come up with the math that shows that, hey, they lost X amount of money because of the regulations in Canada, and therefore, the amount of money they lost was incredibly low, which that's probably what they say, but that's complete bunk. And like I say, the reason that that that's not a good argument is that none of these other countries are going away from oil and gas. The only countries that are going away from oil and gas are the rich Western countries that can afford to blow money on stupid stuff. Those are the only countries that are going away from it. If you look at the third world, China and India are still building a lot of coal power plants. They're not going away from oil and gas. None of these third world countries are going away from oil and gas. If wind and solar truly was the future, why would they not get ahead of the game and have a bunch of wind and solar, because the reality is the wind and solar isn't the future either. Unless the technology is massively, massively improved in a short period of time, it's not the future. So again, that's just another thing I wanted to bring up. I know I've jumped around a little bit in this video. So anyway, if you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, but also BitChute and Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.